public is safe.
I would want everyone to be safe too.
Yeah.
That is a primary concern, but I think their concerns are outweighed by the dollars we could save, and I don't think safety would be compromised if we had 4 precincts voting out of church versus 3 locations, duplicate cost that can be eliminated by moving to 1 polling place.
And so I'm sorry, your suggestion would be then to eliminate all of the outside? Is that it, the traffic, to
I don't
bring
see
the cost down?
The fire detail is completely unnecessary. If you don't have it for a mass when you have hundreds of people in the church, I don't see why you would need it. You don't have that many people at any one time in there voting. And you can call in a detail on the heavy elections, presidential elections, to direct outside vehicular traffic. 62, I don't see the need to have one on 62. I can understand why the police would want to have a detail, but I don't think it's necessary.
Well, I don't think this was generated by any dollars and cents on their part. It is
I didn't say that. I can
generated by
see
public
why
safety.
they would recommend it, but I
Well,
don't see.
even just in corroboration of what their request was for a detail on 62, the fire department's concerns were also about emergency access, getting to any incidents at the church or on the west side of town, and that having an officer on duty at 62 would help for the traffic flow and to respond. There'd be somebody right there to help do that.
I understood. I read the memo. I just don't
Barbara,
think
what's the next 2 elections
The
scheduled?
next 2 elections would be the town election in May of next year, and then we have a September state primary and a November state election in 2010. So we have 3 elections coming up next year. The polling, I don't know if it's clear to see in the pictures that I gave you. I did move all of the equipment that I could from one half of the church to the other side before we took it down after the town election, or the day after the town election. And it is crowded. The movable wall that does separate the 2 precincts provides a good barrier that you can separate those 2 precincts very well, and it's a visible barrier. There's no chance of voters getting mixed up from one precinct to the other. But once you put these 2 sets of polling equipment together, of course, you need to create another barrier within this section to make sure that both precincts are separate and self-contained, that there's not voter confusion as to where people go. Where they go to check in is relatively easy. Checking out, we don't want them crossing any lines. We don't want people depositing their ballots in the wrong ballot box. So there would be some type of barrier, whether it's cones and tape. Can't interfere with any persons with disabilities, so we have to be mindful of that. It has to meet all the requirements under the Massachusetts Office of Disabilities, so that the handicapped can access their particular polling location. But it is very crowded. It is very crowded. And that is without, any voters, any workers, anybody just walking around getting from one end to the other. So that is a consideration too.
Barbara, what's the difficulty with, since the next election is May, is to move forward with this for May and evaluate it, and let's say that it turns out to be problematic. How easy is it then to change it back? I mean, is that...
Well, everything just requires notification. I mean, we do have to make a decision. That's why I said nothing has to be made tonight. I would love to take anybody who wants to look at it. We can set up the half of the church, with the equipment that's there to view it. But the Secretary of State's office has to be notified within a period of time. And every residence that has a voter has to be notified of the change of their polling location by mail. And enough time has to be taking place. If you change it back, you have to do the same in reverse. those are the issues. You could do it for a town election and say, we can get by, there's not that much traffic. We had, about an 18% turnout at this election, so you're going to plan for that. But then come September, that's a very slow election. I can tell you right now, that's historically our slowest election in the 4-year election cycle. But the November general election will be a bit higher. That'll be the,
So we could afford to put detail on and still overall, for the course of the whole year, save money.
I'm sorry, Bob?
We could provide additional details for the November election and overall save money by
Using the-
making this move.
Using police details at that time, you mean?
Yes, when the volume is gonna be high,
Yeah.
appropriately scheduled details. And still be ahead of the game for the whole year.
Perhaps, yes. It would be, if there ended up being any issues, with traffic and all, we would be calling for any extra help that we needed. That's what we do now, as a backup. So we would just follow suit with that. This would be then not utilizing a fire department personnel then?
Well,
That
I'm
would
just
be
one
correct.
person, but that.
Do we
that
use
would
a
be-
fire department personnel now?
No. The suggestion is, from the fire department, or the recommendation is that one be on duty there to address any issues that come up.
I don't know, my feeling is we should give it a shot.
I'm in favor of that.
Yeah.
What is your feeling on the recommendation that the police department has on dividing the parking lot?
I think that's a good idea.
That-
That would be a good way of dealing with the issue, is that they could rope off a line down the center and allow diagonal parking.
Now, that would be something that would be coordinated with the Public Works Department, and as I said also, that has not been factored in. So that would be a cost that would be added to each election
But
also.
that's just a
because-
setup time to do
It is,
that.
but
And
there
they may
is
have to
a,
buy some barrels or, well, they probably have that kind of stuff.
yeah, it would be a matter of timing, when we could put it up. If the
Mhm.
church has an ongoing function, we can't do that to interfere with their facility, so it might involve overtime costs for the Public Works Department. I just put that in as a note there, so you could see that, these are all peripherals and additional costs.
What was the voter turnout on the presidential election this last time?
I believe it was about 8,500 voters.
So about 85%, 80%, but,
Mhm.
and again, that was inordinately high. I mean, even in past presidential elections, it had.
That was actually lower than
Was it really?
the 2000. Yeah, we had a 92% turnout for 2000.
It's once every 4 years.
What's that?
Once every 4 years.
So I know, yeah.
Excuse me, Barbara, during church services, has there been a recorded accident with the volume of people? I didn't see anything in the report by the police that there has been an accident. due to the
That I
volume.
wouldn't know, Jeff. I wouldn't know if they have the answer to that.
And we have 3 elections.
3 elections
Yep.
next year.
Steve,
Yeah, I think, my concern again is for the big election. I think that's, it would be difficult to manage for one site just because of the sheer volume. And even at the 3 locations, it's pretty busy throughout the day, at least in the last presidential elections. For the town elections, Jeff and I weren't that big of a drawing card, so it shouldn't have been too much of a problem. And again, the state primaries are generally very low.
State primary's very low.
The problem comes, that I can see is, if we have to switch back and forth, the notification to the general public, educating the general public as to.
no,
where
I
they-
wasn't anticipating switching back
I know
and
you're
forth
not.
as a,
I know you're not, but it's that would be the biggest concern to me is making sure that the general populace is well informed as to where it's gonna be, and that if we're going to experiment with something, just to go in eyes wide open, that, it may not work. If it doesn't work, then so be it. things differently. You have to look at doing things a little bit differently. What are we talking about savings here? And again, I tend to agree with Mr. Delaney in relation to what's being suggested. I think somewhere in between is probably more of a compromise in relation to the details that will be required, as opposed to what's being fully suggested here. What are we really talking about savings on an election cycle?
Well, it's broken down, but it's factoring in the police details and the fire details, so you would just need to
But it's,
omit
I mean,
those.
it's probably
$2,500, $3,000 an
a
election.
couple of $1,000, probably, a couple of $1,000 per election cycle.
Election, yeah.
So what we're talking about is over the next year with 3 cycles, you're saving $6,000. Is it worth saving $6,000?
It's an ongoing savings. Year to
But it's
year.
ongoing savings. If
Not a
we can do
one-time
so,
savings.
if it works for the larger election. Again, if it doesn't work for the larger election, I mean, what's the mailing, what do we have, 2,500 households we have to mail to?
About 55, I think.
Well, you wouldn't have to do all. You just have to do 2 precincts. You just have to notify the ones that are changing,
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
okay?
But okay,
Exactly.
just
Yeah.
as far as costs, so what's our net effect? So in answer to your question, yeah, I'm in favor of trying it, but, again, I'm also aware that it may not work. But I think for the next 3 elections, it'll probably work fine. Biggest concern again is the big state and the presidential elections every 4 years.
Okay, so,
Look at things differently, so let's try it.
does this require a motion, or?
It would require a vote of the Board of Selectmen, correct, if you're ready to move on that, or if you want to, I can look into the law and see exactly what steps should be taken first. That probably would be
Why don't
the
we-
best
Why don't we
thing.
consider this
And
as
then
like
you
a
can-
first
yeah.
reading? I think there's a consensus to move forward with it.
Well, what else is there? You have to notify the Secretary of State no later than 20 days prior to an election,
Yeah, and then.
posting a change in town hall, and mail the notification to each resident, a registered voter.
Correct.
So what else is there to do?
Right off the top of my head, I can't recall anything else that's specified in the law. I'd have to revisit it.
You must have looked at it before you gave us this memorandum.
Yeah, I did,
Okay.
Sean. I believe that is it, but I'd like to refresh my memory and see what it is again.
All right.
Just like to have a motion ready for us at the next meeting.
Yep.
For our
All
next
right.
meeting.
And Joe will be present too.
Okay.
Alan has a question, Walter.
Mr. Walden?
Would it be possible to save us the money on notifications for including with the tax bill?
That I couldn't answer, Alan.
Perhaps I could look at it.
It can be looked at. I believe the law just says that it has to be notification by mail, so it could possibly be encompassed if we just include it as a bulk mailer, whether or not there is a voter at that residence, we just have it stuffed in with every envelope to be safe. That should cover it.
Certainly place
Again,
an ad
I'll
in the
double
transcript.
check on that.
At the church, there are 2 exits, an east and a west exit. So, where you're saying you need one detail, there's 2 exits, so I think that would be where they fork, it's not right where Stop and Shop is, so I think it would make it easier, for people to go east and west. And it's probably even easier to get out of the church one than it is to get out of the high school one, as evidence of the last election with the light and the rioters and the traffic going. So I think it makes sense to do it at St. Teresa's. My other point is that, to get in the flow at the high school the way it is, you're there at 4 o'clock when the rest of the high schoolers are getting out, like from their sporting events and things like that. That's the way the traffic pattern is, that's pretty treacherous as it is. So I think the St. Teresa's, the loop that they have running, works a little bit better. When St. Teresa's has their CPD class, there's at least 70 kids that are dropped off in a matter of like 15 minutes, the way that, the traffic pattern goes. So, on an hour, so I think they're used to dealing with a lot of traffic and things like that. In order to drop off a child for CPD, it probably takes maybe, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, same amount of time it does to vote. So I think they can, get the traffic in and out safely.
I wouldn't know that setup. I wouldn't, I don't attend the church or do that, so